Hey and welcome to the ultimate guide on how to get started playing the Space Wolves in Warhammer 40,000. I'm joined with Jord. How you doing, Jord?
I am very good. I'm excited to get stuck into the Sons of Russ, one of my favourite factions from 40k, actually. I've recently started collecting them myself, so yeah, I'm excited to get into this.
And what we're going to be covering is we're going to be giving a little bit of background of the lore, where they're currently at, and that's going to give a really good sense and feel of the play style of the army. We're then going to look at actually how do we collect an army. We're going to look at some of the starter boxes that you could start to purchase and some of the miniatures that you might want to collect. We're then going to take a little bit of a look at the army rules, some detachments, and we'll even give you a 1,000-point list to get you started whilst covering some of the top units to ensure that you're covering all those bases in a nice, well-balanced list. And of course, after that, we're going to teach you everything that you need to know in order to accelerate your knowledge and get more from this awesome faction of Space Wolves. So, Jordan, first of all, where are we starting with the lore?
Right, I think we start off with the fundamentals of the Space Wolves. Well, they're basically space Vikings, right?
Space Vikings,
Space Vikings, you'll see like all the runes, they've got like all the cool axes, furs, wolf pelts everywhere.
Yeah.
They drink beer and mead. They've got a specifically designed mead that actually allows the Space Marines to get drunk, because normally Space Marines can't even get drunk.
Right, because they recover too quickly.
Exactly, but they've made their own version to allow themselves to get drunk. So feasting, fighting, and drinking, that is the Space Wolf way of life.
Thought we were going to say another F then. Cool. Got it. Nice.
Yeah, exactly. So that is like the basic core fundamentals of the Space Wolves.
Right.
They are obviously a Space Marine chapter.
Yeah.
They don't follow what is commonly known as the Codex Astartes. They don't follow that format. They're a bit more divergent. They do their own thing. So there's 12 great companies, all led by one of these epic heroes that we have. Characters like Ragnar Blackmane will be leading one. You've got Logan Grimnar, the Great Wolf himself, the leader of the Space Wolves. He leads his own great company. Now, these are the fundamental structures of this faction. Right. And you'll be able to model your faction around that as well. So you'll have like color schemes that will base off these different great companies.
My question is, though, does Bjorn lead a company?
Bjorn doesn't lead a company, no. So Bjorn the Fell-Handed is one of the oldest living Imperial servants, I would say. This guy literally is as old as the Space Wolves themselves, nearly.
He pretty much is, yeah. He was back, well, obviously his story originates in the Horus Heresy.
The Horus Heresy, exactly. So
before he was a Dreadnought.
Before he was a Dreadnought. He actually walked alongside the Primarch of the Space Wolves themselves, Leman Russ.
Yes.
Leman Russ was...
Not a tank.
Not a tank. He's a Primarch. The tank was named after the Primarch. But yeah, this guy is really, really good. Really, really cool. He's one of the strongest Primarchs, I would say, especially in close combat, and that's where Space Wolves excel. Their
ferocity. I think they were kind of known as the Emperor's executioners.
The Emperor's executioners, yeah. They were, if someone was naughty, the Emperor would be like, "Oi, Russ, go sort them out.
Go sort them out, Russ."
And that brings us on to the Thousand Sons.
Okay.
Yeah, they have an eternal hatred of the Thousand Sons.
Yes.
There was a big battle called the Burning of Prospero, and this is where Leman Russ was sent to sort Magnus out, take him back home, and
yeah, for him to repent for his
crimes.
His crimes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
However, that didn't go so smoothly for anybody involved.
No.
And yeah, now we've got this internal feud of, did Magnus do anything wrong?
Yeah, and if you're a Space Wolf fan, he absolutely did do everything wrong.
And if you're a Thousand Sons player, then of course not.
Exactly. So depends on the side of the coin you're on. But yeah, it's definitely something that you'll see reflected. Even some of the kits actually have Thousand Son helmets that you can get on the floor. Like the Thunderwolf kit actually comes with like a Thousand Son helmet that you can put on the base.
Okay.
So it's a massive feud. Even in the current setting, there has been the battles on Fenris as well, the home world of the Space Wolves, which is like a death world. It's a ice planet with massive monsters like Krakens and wolves, Fenrisian wolves.
But here is the irony, right? So that all sort of started because the Emperor was like, hey, no magic tricks, please.
Yeah.
We don't want any of that card shuffling shenanigans, things disappearing. Absolutely not. Put your wand away, Harry.
Exactly.
Right? Magnus gets in big old trouble for trying to basically say to the Emperor, hey, I think Horus is up to no good. And he did it in a magical, telepathic way. And then the Emperor was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't come warning me like that. At least send a pigeon or something non-magical.
Well, come on, a pigeon would have been better, right? Or a raven, at least.
Well, now, for example, Najal, what's he got there? He's got a big old staff.
Well,
so now they've started to use, oh, actually, that magic ain't so bad. Maybe we should use it. So I'm not on the, side here of anyone, but I'm just saying.
I mean, you sounded pretty biased there, Steve.
I'm just saying that it ain't all sunshine and rainbows for the Space Wolves.
Well, no, and actually in the Heresy,
At least with the Black Templars. Now that is a legion, or should I say a chapter?
Are they even a chapter?
I don't think they're a chapter anymore.
They're like they're crusades. That's what they are.
It's a strong crusade. That's what it is.
It's a strong crusade, yeah.
And they don't do any of that magic. They're like, no.
All right, well, let's get off your high horse here, okay? Because after the Council of Nicaea, that's when the Emperor turned around and was like, no more magic, we're not going to do it. But the Space Wolves did still, even in the Heresy.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Did you say the Council of IKEA?
Nicaea, not IKEA, no. We're not getting some Calaxes on Fenris.
The Council of Nicaea slogan, just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what you get on Fenris. It's a death world because of the amount of Calaxes you get.
Mm-hmm.
No, so on this, the Space Wolves have used psychic powers, or basically they tap into like the natural elements of the powers. They call forth storms, things like that, lightnings, blizzards. So that's kind of their magic style, but they didn't kind of see it as magic.
Right.
Yeah.
Gone full Radagast the Brown. Anyway, moving on. So where do we start with collecting this army? As you sort of said, there's some magical powers going on. We're talking about space Vikings. You've mentioned wolves.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, like, you're just this incredible fighting force that specializes in combat and that close range power. Now, years gone by in previous editions, the Space Wolves had a lot of the iconic Space Marine units, but reformed. They had their own versions of those incredible units that we've seen on the table. They didn't have tactical Marines. They had Grey Hunters instead. They had their own version of Devastators called Longfangs, and they even had some really cool sort of flying spaceships as well, or transport. So obviously now with the new book, they've got a new model range. Where do we start collecting this army now?
Well, I think there's a few things we can do. We can start reading some of the books. So we can start reading some of the Ragnar series that's out there. There's 6 books in that series. You can even go back to the Battle of Prospero or the Burning of Prospero books as well. There's all these books that we can start to learn the lore from. But when it comes to collecting the models, as you just mentioned, there's been a refresh when it comes to the models. So we do have the Space Wolf box set. If you can get your hands on that, it's a perfect way to start that. That is limited though. It's not going to be a constant product that will be out there. But the Combat Patrol, now there is a Combat Patrol inside the Codex. Now we can only assume that will be out in time. That gives us Blood Claws, it gives us Wolfen, the Wolfguard Terminators, and a Wolfguard Battle Leader. Wow. So it gives you literally the units that you want in your collection. The key units in your collection, the main Space Wolf ones. Right,
so let's go over kind of the core essence of, you know, the different units that we might want. Leaders, right? We've got lots of different options for leaders. Obviously, I think most Space Wolf collectors should probably pick up Logan at some point, right? He might not always be in every list, but he's certainly quite an incredible model. It is an absolutely beautiful model. Biddy's painted this in such a lovely way, but yeah, it actually is much better in person than it is in pictures, I must admit.
I actually think it's one of the best models that GW have done.
I agree. It really feels like a nice centerpiece model. Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really nice how it's all come together. So definitely worth getting one of these. Now, obviously, this could be something that you might build up to paint, you know, when you feel like you've really got your technique down of painting all the different wolf pelts and, you know, like whether you want like a little sort of flaming axe or whatever you've kind of gone
with his
for.
axe and Morkai that he has on
Yeah,
Logan.
so I feel this is like a really nice model. You know, maybe somebody's wondering what to get you for your birthday. This is the one.
I would agree. I think he's one of the most perfect centerpieces you can get for a 40k army. Now, if you're going to look at Logan, then the next step obviously is Wolfguard Terminators because he can lead them. So if you're looking for a tabletop use of this guy, him leading Wolfguard Terminators is the only unit he can lead. So it's a perfect matchup if you're going to do that. Now, elsewhere, there's so many great characters in this book, whether it's Ragnar Blackmane, Najal Stormcaller, as you mentioned. Now, if you read some of the books, some of the lore books, this may give you a favourite of a character that you really love, or maybe even a sergeant or wolf leader, that you want to build up in your collection. That will inform your decision on what unit to buy there. Yeah, because you can always buy a model because you think it looks cool. Yep. You could buy a model because you really like the backstory. Or maybe you just like a little bit of customization and you want to create your own, which is all absolutely fine. Or you might just buy a model because it is the best unit choice, like the most competitive choice. So it doesn't matter which way you want to go.
by all means, absolutely do it. And our goal here is to help you understand exactly those other key elements that you need in order to build an army list of Space Wolves. So obviously, Jordan, when we're building out our army list, maybe you've got the app and you really want to start to dive into putting all these units together. That's the key thing. The most important thing is that you need a warlord for the army. That's a key legality part of having a legal list, is that you have a warlord. So you just need to pick one of your characters. If you take Logan, does he have to be a warlord?
He doesn't have to be.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
So pick one of your favorite characters. That's going to be a warlord.
Yeah.
And obviously, in the game that you can pick up to 3 enhancements, and obviously they can only be placed on those non-epic heroes. An epic hero is somebody that actually has a name. A non-epic hero could be like captain, or what's the equivalent?
Wolfguard battle leader.
Okay, so these are the ones that you can customize with those kind of enhancements. And the way that it works is you need at least one character to be your warlord, and then after that, you can kind of do what you want. That's the only real requirement you actually need to have when you're building your army list. But what you'll find is a lot of these characters, they'll have a really cool ability for themselves that makes them either more durable or better. And then obviously they're going to have an ability as well that really accentuates the unit that they go with. And that's kind of normally said whilst leading a unit X, Y, and Z, right? So that's kind of what we're going to focus on in this sort of next bit. And when we're building our army lists, we're looking for 5 aspects to be covered in order to have a well-balanced army list, no matter what point size you're playing, whether you're playing 500-point games, 1,000, 1,500, or 2,000, or even upwards of that. The 5 key elements are, and we talk about this a lot on our masterclass series, are how to play, for example, Space Wolf course you could get, and we cover each of these in real detail. We've got a unit bred to deal with horde units. So lots and lots of models. How are we going to get rid of lots of models, right? We need a unit dedicated for that. We need a unit dedicated towards killing big things, big, tough monsters, vehicles, something to take those down. We also then need a unit to hold our objectives. Okay, that's really key to hold those primary points. We also then need a unit to, for example, go out and score those cards or, play the mission for us. And then that 5th piece, this is sometimes, we will refer to it as like an elite killing unit. So this is designed to kill other Terminators or Custodes or 8-bound or even some sort of Space Marines like Blade Guard, for example. But depending on, you might want this unit as well because it can kind of sometimes flex a little bit towards helping you kill the horde, and it can sometimes flex a little bit to kill the sort of bigger monsters and vehicles because it's in that sort of middle spot where it can kind of do a little bit of both. And that's really those 5 key elements that we want to be covering. So when we're looking at, for example, the combat patrol box, if you were to start with the combat patrol box, do you get a leader in there that could be a warlord?
Yes. You get a battle leader, Wolfguard battle leader.
Okay, great. And then what other units do you get in there?
You get Blood Claws.
Blood Claws, now that unit is really good at, for example, killing other horde units because they get lots of attacks. But they can also double up and hold some objectives for you because they're a battle line unit and they get good OC or objective control. What other units do we get in there?
We get Wolfen.
Wolfen. Now this unit, not so good at doing much else apart from killing things.
Yeah, exactly. They are there to kill things. There are 2 variants, so you can have more of a damage 2, loads of damage 2 attacks kind of variant, but it's less durable. Or we can have ones with shields and hammers. They're designated to kill vehicles and the tougher targets because they actually have the keyword anti-monster, anti-vehicle 3+.
So I think we bring those in to fulfill that role. Give them a hammer, give them a shield, and now we've got a unit to kind of help us in that criteria. But of course, they're doing this in combat, so they've got to get there. That's why the shields come in handy. What else do we get in that box?
We get the Wolfguard Terminators. Now, there's loads of damage 2 in this unit. There is a model that has a great axe. It's also damage 3.
So this is like your perfect elite killing unit, right?
Exactly.
But because it's nice and durable, it can actually help you killing lots of things. They do get a good amount of attacks and shots as well. So this is kind of that flex unit that I quite like. So the only thing that doesn't really offer then, is that all you get in the box?
That's all you get in the box, yeah.
So we don't really have much to help us hold those or score the secondary cards?
Nope.
So that might be like that next unit you kind of bring in. And what unit could you suggest that we bring in to help us, score some points when it comes to the objective cards in the game?
So a very interesting thing about starting Space Wolves is you are actually going to have to get 2 codexes. You will have to get the Space Wolf Codex Supplement and the Space Marines Codex itself. So you'll need these 2 books to work side by side because you'll get the Army Rule from the Space Marine Codex over the moment, but you'll also have access to all of the data sheets in that codex as well.
All right, so you get not just what's in here, but access to a lot more. Okay.
Yeah, there is some restrictions on a couple of the units which you can't take, like you can't take an apothecary, devastators, or tactical squad. But for the rest of the codex, you're free to take what you like. Now, in terms of the scoring unit, as you just asked, I think scouts are a great option because they have a rule to come on and off the board. They have infiltrate, they have scouts, that allows us to get into areas early on the board in a deployment step.
Yeah.
But they're really good for just coming on and off the board, scoring new positional cards. For most other Space Marine factions, they are the dedicated scoring unit, and they are deemed as wolf scouts, right? That is a term in the Space Wolf Codex. Now, a bit of lore on that is scouts are normally the initiates of a chapter. They're like your first stop if you're a Space Marine, and then you get promoted to a Space Marine after, or go through the ranks. Space Wolves are different. The scouts are an option if you're more of like the lonelier wolves and you want to be a bit more of like a recon element. You actually start as a Bloodclaw. As a Space Wolf, so you become blooded and become a Bloodclaw, and you have to wrestle with the Canis Helix, which is like this gene that gets put into you and gives you like the Primarch essence of Lehman Russ. So yeah, the Bloodclaws are your initiates, but the scouts themselves, they are more of a recon element, but they would fulfill that role of the scoring asset for sure.
Yeah, and actually in the Space Wolf Codex itself, we've got access to wolves.
Yes, Fenrisian wolves. Now that's another option.
And because the great thing about all these options is that they're nice and cheap in terms of how many points they cost on the battlefield. So if they are going out to do something on the table for you, maybe they need to be in a particular place to get an area, or maybe they do need to do an action for you, like the scouts might. They're nice and cheap. So it means if you put them out to do something, they're expendable. And that's kind of what we need as well. So I think having like the combat patrol and then maybe a unit of scouts or a unit of wolves would just fulfill that requirement to make sure we've got a nice spread of those kind of 5 elements, really.
Yeah, and I would say on the wolf side of things, so you can get obviously your Fenrisian wolves, also get access to hunting wolves if you take the head takers. They have to be within range of a Space Wolf character. Now, again, it's something we talk about a lot on the How to Play, is actually getting the utility of this unit, but they're OC 0 to begin with, which means 2 things. They can't hold primary, and they can't do actions innately. Now, obviously, as a scoring unit, that's obviously not very good, right? But when they're within 6 of a Space Wolf character, they get the OC, allowing them to do both functions.
Great.
So if you have to look at your list, if you are going to dive deeper into the Codex supplement and take the Ragnar or Logan or a Space Wolf battle leader or Wolf Priest, you're going to give them access to that OC. If you're not, then you're going to lose out on that.
So imagine this army running up the table, closing down the enemy. Meanwhile, as they're sort of like running as fast as they can or moving towards it, you've got these units doing these actions for you as you go across the table, keeping within those nice tight ranges as well. Okay, great. Okay, so that's kind of like the main 5 things. Now, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. What would you say is a great choice for each of these roles, like that you've seen in the Codex?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say holding primary, you can't get better than Grey Hunters.
Okay, and Grey Hunters, they're a battle line unit.
Yep.
So this is kind of like the most basic unit that you'll see multiple times, because you can actually take up to 6 of these units. Whereas obviously everything else that's not battle line, you can only take 3 of them. In the battle line, we have access to, just inside this book alone, not including the Space Marines, we've got obviously the Bloodclaws.
Yep.
And we've got the Grey Hunters.
Absolutely.
So this is kind of like the bulk of the army. What's so good about Grey Hunters?
Well, for starters, they're OC3 per model.
Wow, that's very high.
Yeah, and these guys, it's like marking your territory. That's kind of, the Grey Hunters are kind of like veterans. They've gone through the process of being a Bloodclaw. They've got the experience now. They've managed to temper down the wolf spirit inside them. They're a bit more rugged and a bit more wiser. Okay. So these guys control your primary. They've got OC3, but they've also got chainswords, so loads of combat attacks, and they've also got bolt carbines. So they've got 2 shots, 3 at rapid fire. So they've got a lot of shots, like piddly shots we call it, right? So these are able to clear like gaunts, anything that's like loads of models, low save, one save, 1 wound exactly. So they're fantastic to hold your primary.
Great. All right. And it is just how many attacks you get is what's so great about killing the Horde unit. So it kind of doubles up as both.
Exactly.
Because you get 30 shots in the shooting phase, and then you get another 40 attacks in combat. So that's 70 attacks.
It's a lot.
That is, and we haven't even spoke about ways that you can even enhance that with leaders and stratagems and everything else in the game. So we're just looking at the core basics here. All right, great. Let's go on to now then. What would be another great unit? Would you actually say that unit is the best unit of killing Horde unit while we're on the topic?
I would say them or blood claws.
Why blood claws?
Blood claws get the same amount of attacks, so they get loads of attacks. They get chainswords each. Now, these guys get advanced and charge innately, so they're able to get to combat faster.
Before the horde unit gets to them.
Exactly, so they have that ability.
How many models can you take in a unit?
So you can take 10 in both, but blood claws you can take 20.
Right, so this is the key element now.
Yeah.
So you've got a unit here with 80 attacks.
Yes, it's a lot.
In close combat, advancing and charging. Again, we haven't even covered any other abilities that you could sprinkle on them by leaders. So 80 attacks, that's going to get through a lot of low toughness, no armored save sort of models, really.
Yeah, and this is why. But the difference between them and Grey Hunters is obviously with the OC, but they're cheaper. Usually, so at 10 for 10, they're cheaper. And they always will be cheaper because they are less, they have less going for them. They don't have the OC, they don't have the bolt carbines, they've just got pistols. But that's why I'd consider them as another option, as a cheaper variant for that role. We could look into the Space Marine Codex. Now, there's loads of options there for it, but we're just going to look at the Space Wolf Codex because we're trying to build a themed list, I guess, for Space Wolves, and that's where you get your flavour is this codex.
As we always teach on the How to Play course from our masterclass series, we always talk about, we want to really get the essence of this codex, and then we're using that Space Marine Codex to supplement.
Yep.
And sprinkle in little tools that we don't have access to in our toolbox. And that's kind of how we want to think about our army list. Okay, great. So we might want a unit of Grey Hunters, maybe a unit of Blood Claws, maybe we've got the Start Collecting box, we've got a good amount of element in there. Okay, who is our designated unit to kill monsters and vehicles that we're going to be going for?
Okay, so we've already mentioned one, Wolfen. Wolfen was shields because they have that keyword to take down. They got flat 3 damage, so they can do quite a bit of damage when it comes to these guys. In particular, certain detachments will obviously enhance this. So obviously when you come to look at that, we'll look at that in your detachment, see which ways you can. But as an innate datasheet, they are good at dealing with vehicles and transports because they wound them all on 3s.
The only problem that you might have with them is they're quite easy to kill.
Yeah.
And if you put them out there and maybe you do kill a monster or vehicle, they might not be around much longer after that. So you might need a few units of these to kind of be able to go and deal with, because a lot of armies do now have, to be quite honest, at least 4 to 5 monsters and vehicles in a lot of army lists. So you need to have, you can't just have this one unit thinking this is going to go through them all. You might need a few of these in order to do it. But they come at a price point where that's actually manageable.
Yeah.
Any other units that you think could help out in this?
Well, I think we look at the Space Marine Codex here now for that, and I think I would naturally go with a Ballistus.
A Ballistus Dreadnought, yeah.
Because it's one of the cheaper gun platforms we have in that codex. It's reliable on its own because it can get reroll hits.
Okay.
And it has 4 D6 damage weapons, which is a great profile. Now, they can be hit and miss at times because they are D6 damage, so you could roll a 1. But they are still a relatively reliable platform, durable, decent OC that can do that role for you.
Yeah, and I think as well that a Dreadnought is very much a sort of classic chassis for a Space Wolf. You look at the Space Wolf Codex and they actually have a lot of dedicated Dreadnoughts, so I feel like it does fit that theme a little bit more than potentially if you went for like an alternative, which was a Lancer or a Predator. So I do like that idea of a Ballistus Dreadnought kind of bringing in some support as well. Or you could look at a Redemptor Dreadnought. Their firebase is okay. It's typically much better at shooting elite units. However, I do feel like with the combat abilities in this codex, you might get a little bit more out of the big fist you get, and that's what can help with those sort of monsters and vehicles.
Yeah, absolutely. If we take a look at the elite killing though, I would actually say Space Wolves do this very well. So that you can't go wrong with a lot of the data sheets, really. We have a lot of
Terminators.
Terminators are great for it. Terminators have loads of damage too. They have access to damage 3 in that unit as well.
Yeah.
Head takers as well, because they can get devastating wounds. They got loads of attacks with their damage 2 weapons. So depending on the army you're facing, they may, like Custodes, at least getting dev wounds on Custodes could help quite a bit. And then obviously we have access to all of our characters as well. We have so many named characters in this codex that give us loads of high damage weapons or lots of attacks at high AP. So I would definitely look at those, but the ones I would recommend would probably be Thunderwolf Cavalry.
Okay.
Because they've got flat 3 damage weapons, quite a few attacks as well. AP2, you're usually putting them onto invulnerable saves. So you should be able to clear elites quite well with them.
All right, nice. So we got quite a good mix there, haven't we? From head takers to Terminators to Thunderwolf Cavalry. And of course, most of your characters are also going to be geared up to do this job as well. They do this exceptionally well, I would say, is the characters, and that's kind of quite universal for most armies. All right, cool. So that's our dedicated horde. Monsters, vehicles, elite. We've spoke about holding objectives. We've spoken about some great units as well now to score secondaries. Any other sort of honourable mentions you want to talk about?
Not really in terms of data sheets. I mean, we could go all day on the different data sheets. It's something we do a lot more so on how to play, where we go into every data sheet possible that we can. The Space Marine Codex, we look at the most impactful ones for the faction. But in terms of that, I think it's best we take a look at the army rule briefly, because we do get over moment, as I mentioned. Now, the cool thing about Space Wolves, the Codex supplement, is we do have something called sagas. Now, this is a very thematic rule which will allow you to be a bit more immersed into the army itself. So there'll be certain tasks you have to complete as a Space Wolf player with your characters or units that will unlock deeds and give you extra abilities because you've maybe slayed a character and you've unlocked this boast, and now they're going to start singing songs about you in the halls of the victors. And yeah, there's so many cool things with that rule, and it does give you that thematic essence.
And that's it. And in game terms, what that means is when you pick your detachment, you're going to get a sort of an okay army rule or detachment rule, and then when you complete your saga, it becomes much better. So it becomes like double stacked. So it's either like an enhanced version or a sort of different separate ability altogether, which I think is cool because then it kind of gives you that reward on the tabletop, and you're going to feel the momentum when you're playing of that play style, which is great. Love it. Now, what's next when we look at a detachment? Which would you say is a nice start a detachment for somebody thinking, right, I've got my first game with this army? Where would you advise somebody to start as a nice sort of go-to to give you a good feel of the army?
Okay, I would say Saga of the Beast Slayer.
And what does that do?
So this one gives you lethal hits against characters, monsters, and vehicles. For the army. Now, the reason for this, and something that you'll come to find as a Space Wolf player, is there's a lot of keywords that trigger certain abilities or restrict certain units from getting abilities. The other two detachments in this codex are quite restrictive when it comes to the keywords and the sagas themselves, and specifically the stratagems. This detachment is the least restrictive detachment of all three. Okay,
so you're less likely to make mistakes with the book because there's less like keyword sort of manipulation or check-in and things. So that makes it a really, I suppose, easy play experience because you know you're not going to make those mistakes. Also, what's great here is that lethal hits mechanic. So when you roll a 6 to hit, it's called a critical hit. That's going to basically skip the wounding roll, which makes it much, much easier for these like really good units, whether they're head takers or the Thunderwolf cavalry or even your your Grey Hunters or Blood Claws. Now they're getting so many attacks. Normally there'd be wounding vehicles and monsters on 5s, maybe even 6s, which makes it very, very difficult to actually get a wound through. Now you skip that stage, so you're going to get a lot more attacks, a lot more wounds through, and that helps all those key units we've already identified punch up a little bit higher and hit those monsters and vehicles a little bit easier. So I do like that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the stratagems there's some really good utility stratagems in there. Ones that are going to help you either survive, do more damage, give you more utility on the battlefield, whether it's taking units off the board. And I think this is something that will give you a wider gameplay experience as a player.
Great.
And allow you to actually adapt as a player to any scenario you're thrown into, rather than being restricted to a certain style of play where you're kind of shoehorned into a build potentially.
So a bit more tactical, a bit more flexible.
Yeah.
I like it. I think that's a good starting place. And of course, you can still pick and use the detachments from the Space Marine Codex as well. So if you've maybe dabbled with a little bit of Gladius, you could still take that, and it gives going to be a wide range of options. Again, Gladius is always a nice go-to try.
It's actually,
as well.
I was going to mention Gladius as the other potential one if you wanted to take something that's a bit more carefree and well-rounded, because it's probably the most well-rounded detachment in the game.
It probably is, yes, definitely up there. All right, great. So any cool enhancements you'd pick from that detachment?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend giving a battle leader the enhancement that allows them to join Wolfen.
Ooh.
Because that means we spoke about the Wolfen earlier with the shields, maybe taking them in loads of units. This allows you to take a bigger unit with this character, and my do they punch up into those vehicles.
Like it, so you can have a real hard hitting unit.
Sustained
and that's cool
lethals. It's amazing.
And this is where it gives you that option as well to customize your characters.
Yeah.
You could do a really cool like conversion. Maybe you take like some of the new models and you put it on a like the legs of a wolfen or something, and you've got this battle leader but is a wolfen leader. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversion options there, because there's actually another lore thing. There's actually a company, the 13th company. So I said there's 12, but it's actually a hidden one, a secret one. That was sent on a mission by Lehman Russ back in the days of the heresy to hunt down the Thousand Sons in the warp. And they're called the 13th company, the Lost 13th. And they've been in the warp this entire time for 10,000 years, just hunting down Chaos Marines.
Wow.
And a lot of them have turned to Wolfen or have degraded now into and lost themselves to the wolf spirit. So there's a lot of cool options there that you could do in conversion terms as well.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, what's next to look at?
We're going to take a look at a list.
All right.
An example 1,000 point list. Now, this is going to be a more well-rounded list. All the things that we've just spoken about, we're going to put together in this one list, give you a great starting point. So if you wanted just a 1,000 point easy list to go and buy, get started, I think this will be a great starting point.
All right, so who's the leader?
Logan Grimnar.
All right, cool.
We said he's a great centerpiece, and I think he has to go in for that. On the gameplay, actually, on his own, he doesn't need to lead to give out the benefits, because he doesn't give any leader benefits as a...
And also at 1,000 points, there's not so much lethality in the game, and he probably is okay at that points level.
Yeah.
Who have we got next?
We've got a Wolfguard battle leader. Now, this is like your generic, not a captain, more like a lieutenant, if you're familiar with other Space Marine terms, right? This guy is here to lead one of our units, and he's really good. He gives us sustained hits, gives us reroll ones to hit, but also has fight on death. So when he's like taken down, he's going to have a last heroic hit in combat and just do a bunch of damage, hopefully. Right?
Nice. That's your dream anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and who, let's talk about that now. What unit is he going to be leading in the army?
So he has multiple options, actually. It gives you a bit of flexibility on the table, because we've got 2 units of head takers.
Okay.
Now, we've got these because they allow us to take hunting wolves. So you can take 2 lots of head takers with 3 hunting wolves each. This gives us 2 things. 1, an elite killing unit, because we've got the 3 head takers, but also we've got a scoring unit now in forms of the hunting wolves that can go off and do cards potentially for us.
Yeah. All right, nice.
And then we also have the other 2 options. We've got 10 blood claws and we've got 10 grey hunters.
Okay, so depending on who you're playing, do you need more anti-elite? Then you put them with the head takers. If you need more anti-horde, you could put them with the blood claws or the grey hunters. I like it. Cool.
Yeah. Then we're going to bring in a ballistas dreadnought.
Okay.
So we're going to bring in one of these just to give us that anti-vehicle, allow us to take down some of these targets, maybe proper transport for our blood claws to get in and kill the occupants and stuff like that. So
Nice.
I think this is a great start for a Space Wolf list.
All right, great. And then what? You've already mentioned the 2 battle line units, the grey hunters, the blood claws. Anything else in this list that you've got?
So we've got 5 scouts.
Okay.
So we have 5 scouts to go and score us our cards.
Yep.
And 5 intercessors.
Just regular Space Marine intercessors?
Regular Space Marine intercessors. I actually think these are a great addition to any Marine list anyway. But the reason for this is they give us an ability called sticky objectives. So we can have these guys with 2 OC to hold our home objective.
Now, just for you at home, it's not actually called sticky objectives. This is just what everybody in the Warhammer universe calls it. And it basically keeps objectives under your control even if you leave it. Obviously, until your opponent puts some models on there and takes it off you. And I think the other key element here is you can take them in 5s.
Yes.
You don't have to take a full 10. So therefore, it's a little bit cheaper to do the same role, especially if it's going to be left at the back of the table on your home field objective, just getting you some points. It's a nice way. And then maybe towards the back end of the game, they think, right, everyone's dead now. This objective's ours and it's safe. We can run in and go and steal another one. And that's typically how you'll use those.
Yeah, and I think as well, Space Wolves, we mentioned before, a very aggressive play style. We want to get stuck into melee as fast as possible. Now, if we have the option, we can also sticky our home objective and move the rest of the force forward. And these can follow up as well.
Yeah.
Because we don't necessarily have to hold the home objective. If our opponent has things maybe coming off the board, could steal it from behind us, they probably want to stay on that home objective. But otherwise, you have that option, which is nice.
All right, and that's 1,000 points?
That's 1,000 points, yeah. So it's got elements of everything. Look, there's obviously ways we can expand this. We've got Wolfen, Thunderwolves, our Terminators we could bring in for Logan to lead.
Yeah.
There's so many different options. But as a base 1,000 points, I think this gives you everything you need for the core fundamentals of building a balanced list.
I mean, I could easily see going up to 1,500 points. You buy a box of Terminators to go with Logan. Maybe you'd get Ragnar Blackmane in to go with another, unit maybe. The head takers. And all of a sudden, that's another couple hundred points. Maybe one more ballistas.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much there now in having And then you might look at, okay, well, I get an impulsor and maybe put some of my units in so they can be transported, like some of those head takers. So now all of a sudden you've got great bit of transport, bit of extra of everything, or you might chuck in a unit of wolf and whatever floats your boat, and now you're at 1500 quite nicely, and then expanding to 2k. And these are like manageable chunks that you could work in, especially when you're trying to build and paint up the army.
Yeah, and I think, look, Logan is one we've recommended, but if you do like Ragnar, you've read the books and you really like that character, you could easily swap him out, maybe put an enhancement in. There's so many different options, but I think Space Wolves have such cool flavour. Now, it's important to talk about painting as well.
Well, we've got the list.
We've got the list.
We
got
know the models.
Yeah.
Now we got to get them painted up, right?
Exactly. Now, obviously, we can't go wrong with the Army Painter range. There's actually a bundle you can buy, which we'll have the links in the description to, which gives you all the paints you need to start painting Space Wolves.
Okay.
And we also have on the channel how to paint guide for Space Wolves, how we have painted the Space Wolves in the studio using those exact paints. So we do have a guide that will give you the core fundamentals for that.
So what we'll do, there's a PDF guide that's completely for free. We'll put it in the link below in the description. You can click that link, and all you need to do is pop your email address in there, and then we'll send it straight over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's loads of options we can give you here. Now, something I would recommend that I know Billy's been looking at as well is in the supplement itself, there is a page that gives you all the great company markings, so the colours you might need to use for different ones. If you're painting Ragnar, then the shoulder pad will be yellow with a wolf head on it. If you're painting Logan Grimnar's great company, it's actually black with like a white wolf symbol on it as well. So there's different ways you can do that. And then you got your pack markings, which gives you a lot of creative freedom actually when it comes to painting. You can paint, like if you're painting your blood claws, they've got yellow shoulder pads with red stripes. If you're painting wolf guards, which are like your elites, your veterans, they're yellow with black stripes.
Yep.
So there's so many different options, but look at the pages in the codex.
Yeah, I think the key here though is so you don't get too overwhelmed by a lot of that, because that does sound to me quite overwhelming, right? For me, I would just start off with getting all the layers down of the army.
Yep.
So get them to that sort of nice, and you could do like more of a grey colour if you wanted to lean into a bit of the heresy lore.
Yes.
Because they were more like, you know, battle grey, I would say. But this kind of storm grey, you know, get all those colours down basically. Get your metallics on. Get, you know, your black elements in with like the bits in between the knees and the elbows,
the armor joints, and
the
stuff,
armor joints, you know. And then actually, by the time you've based them, and you don't always have to put snow down, that is optional. They don't always fight on snow.
No, they fight on different planets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you know, the snow, the white specifically does contrast really nicely with the cool tones of the grey. Get all the wolf pelts down with the browns and greys, and you know, actually look at pictures of wolves to see online, you know, what they look like.
Yeah.
And in taking some inspiration from, you know, what nature actually gives us is a great way to enhance your painting. And whether you're using a primer, whether you're dry brushing, whether you're using like speed paints or an airbrush, there's definitely different ways that you can get down those base coats really quickly, really easily. They're beautiful models. They're nice, big and chunky. And then you can decide if you want to dry brush on your edges or edge highlight. Go crazy as you want, but don't get overwhelmed. Keep it basic. Storm grey color, metallics, black bits, and you're probably good to get them on the table now, even to a tournament, and start playing with them. And then you can go back to them and do all the extra bits you need to. So you can really feel like your own army. But don't try to go straight off the back thinking, oh, I need to get this army right up to the standard. Everyone needs a wolf pelt or a wolf signal or sigil, should I say, and the right squad markings, because
that's if you want to expand and kind of get that artistic freedom when it comes to painting the models, because again, it's like you said, it's a lore thing, right? You don't have to.
It's all I'm saying. You need to sometimes, especially if you're beginning with an army, that can be quite overwhelming.
Well, I'd recommend the first colour you get is Runic Cobalt from Army Painter.
Okay.
Because this one is the fundamental, the base colour for Space Wolves if you're going to use Army Painter paints. And yeah, I've absolutely loved using it, so I'd recommend that one straight away.
Love it. All right, great. So we've got the list, we've got some ideas and some painting techniques and where we can go with that. We know the backstory. What's next, Jordan?
Well, next, if you want to learn how to play the faction, we have our How to Play course for Space Wolves.
And what do we cover on that course?
So we cover every single detachment inside this book. So we go through an overview of the detachment, which will include a mini SWOT analysis, which is our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for each of those detachments. We then also have an example list where we'll go through the fundamentals of why we brought those units. And then the final thing we'll talk about on that detachment overview will be our advanced tactics. We'll show some top-down examples of plays you might be able to make with stratagems and all these cool little tactics you can use inside games of with your Space Wolves.
Yeah, and it's so that you can maximize, the positioning.
Yep.
Because that's really where the detail comes in the tactical plays of where do you place the models, why do you place them there, what measurements you need to be aware of to ensure that the cohesion in the army buffs and all those rules can actually trigger, or some elements where you can, maybe escape from your enemy. And this is really where you can show that sort of tactical flair at the tabletop. You're going to be very communicative throughout the whole process, so your opponent knows exactly what's going on as well. And that's really key here at Vanguard Tactics, is that we really have that emphasis on sportsmanship and fair play.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole course is about designed to give you confidence with the faction. It's going to give you all the fundamentals you need. Now, we do also have a module designed for playing the faction itself. So we will have the army rule overview, so we'll go through all the army rules and the key information you need to know. We'll go through a SWOT analysis of the faction itself.
We look at all the top units.
What
they're good for.
Exactly.
Maybe some pairings. So you've got leader, enhancement, stratagem, unit, and how they all come together to unleash its fury on the tabletop. And also, maybe you're thinking, well, do you know what? My friend keeps playing Space Wolves, keeps beating me all the time. I just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
This is actually perfect, because once you've watched it through, you have a really good assessment of what the army can do, and also we have a video on how to play against the army as well,
which will give you the questions you need to ask when playing against Space Wolves to allow you to not get gotcha'd by playing the army, right?
Yep. So if that sounds like something of interest for you, sign up below. And remember, we've got the painting guide, that's completely free. We've got that course, which we really hope you're going to get a tremendous amount of value from. I've learned a lot about the Space Wolves, so Jordan, thank you for your time.
No, thank you.
And we'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.